finish up with Tesla. So they raid his office, they take his papers. Where do you think they are right now?
Oh, actually, they were in the FBI's hands. And recently, I remember the Yugoslav library had access to a lot of them. There's also there's another organization that has actually had Freedom of Information Act application for them. But yeah, it was amazing how all those files disappeared. And of course, the wireless transmission of power is what my latest book, Nikola Tesla's Electricity Unplugged, is all about. And I could mention and give a plug for the company. It's called Visiv Technology. That's VIZIV Technologies.com. Mm-hmm. Actually implementing the Gordon-Cliff Tower concept of transmitting power through the Earth ionosphere and xenic wave, ground wave that Tesla originally envisioned.
Now, you, of course...
They've gone several miles with significant power transfer.
I wonder if we have used a lot of his technology from his notes. What do you think?
I believe so. I mean, AC power is really his claim to fame. And I grew up around Niagara Falls and actually gave lectures about his history in Niagara Falls. I found original newspaper articles from 1896 and so forth, where in 1895, when Buffalo and Niagara Falls were connected for the first time, and the mayor of Buffalo didn't turn the switch on except at midnight in case it didn't work.
Calls with Dr. Tom at the top. Tom, tell us a little bit about this bioelectromagnetic healing. What is that principle?
Well, I often give credit to Tesla, again, for that concept. And actually, he features in my book, Bioelectromagnetic Healing, Rationale for Its Use. And all of these are available on our tinyurl.com/IRI media. The books and videos are all online, and they're on Amazon too. But in that book, I basically describe how Tesla used to give lectures on the application of high voltage, which is like the Premier Junior that you've been experimenting with. And he found that human tissues were condensers. That's what he's quoted for. And condensers is basically an old-fashioned word for capacitors. So the beauty of this discovery, as I researched it, was, and still is, that every tissue, every cell in your body has a membrane. And that membrane is one of the most incredible insulators that anybody can even imagine, especially electroengineers, because it can withstand normally 10 million volts per meter or 100,000 volts per centimeter. So 10 million volts across 1 meter, about 3 feet of distance, basically would short out through the air and give a huge spark. And yet the body withstands that kind of charge all the time, and it powers all those different electrolyte transfers and basically the cell operations, including your immune system.
You believe that copper and silver have an incredible antibacterial possibilities. Tell me about that.
Yes, actually, there's a lot of journal articles. I have the first pages of over a dozen of them in front of me. And silver nanoparticles as potential antiviral agents, copper bracelets that are known to be good for arthritis, dermal assimilation of copper. The copper ions themselves and silver ions have been known to be antibacterial and antiviral for at least 100 years. The old-fashioned people used to put a silver spoon in the well to basically kill germs in well water. So right now, the push is that hospitals should be using copper or brass fixtures on the doors because that's where a lot of germs are held, and stainless steel retains them for days, whereas brass and copper will kill them within an hour. And so wearing a bracelet, which we've designed, silver, copper, and a little bit of gold, which is available on the bioenergydevice.org website, is basically a way to absorb copper ions and silver ions into the body. Copper gets transferred through dry surfaces, and silver needs a little bit of wet, like sweat, in other words, oils from the skin, to transfer into the body. But both are very therapeutic and also antibacterial and virucidal.
Could you grind copper down to like some kind of spray, mix it with water, and just wipe it on surfaces and things like that?
You could, and that's what some of the journal articles indicate, silver nanoparticles. So yes, that is, to be honest about it, silver colloid is a very popular antibacterial and antiseptic used around the world. I've heard that Doctors Without Borders use it all the time throughout Africa and all third world countries. It's the best, cheapest way to administer drops of things. I use it in my nose almost every day. It's a nose spray, for example. You can get it on Amazon, silver colloid. And it's a colloidal silver is amazing. And you can feel the burning sensation as it's killing germs in case you have a nasal infection that could turn into either, a viral infection, which we know we have COVID floating around, and also could be a bacterial infection.
If people wear masks, Tom, could they spray it with stuff like that?
Well, you remove the mask temporarily to spray it, of course.
Sure, absolutely.
But it's like ozone and peroxide. In fact, another therapy I was going to mention, just share with everyone, is the one that Dr. Schellenberger has been recommending, which is the nebulizer plus peroxide. And you dilute the peroxide at least 1 to 3. This is drugstore peroxide.
Hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah, hydrogen peroxide.
Okay.
3 times diluted with, filtered water. Add a pinch of salt. Put it in the nebulizer and breathe it. And he says this kills any kind of virus in the nasal and lung passages, which is basically the first place that airborne viruses can lodge.
Well, I know one thing about it. It's great for killing bacteria in your mouth, your gums and stuff, with a dilution, as you just mentioned, is almost like a gargle.
Yeah, exactly. I use that every night too. This peroxide mouthwash.
What is it about the properties of peroxide that happen to be so strong?
Well, it's providing a singlet oxygen, and that's the danger for most bacteria and viruses. They can't handle the oxygen molecule, and especially O negative, because it's providing that electron that messes up their membrane. So oxygen is a very powerful, especially ozone, for example. That's the same property, even stronger, because the O negative drops off the O3 very quickly.
Tell me about the strength of some colored lights. What do they do?
Basically, red light, anywhere between 650 nanometers up to 1,000 nanometers, has an amazing set of properties for improving mitochondrial activity, boosting immune system, providing extra energy, and even improving retinal response to the blue light. So even just a few minutes of exposure to a red LED type of light that's at least 650 or 670 nanometers, and you can find that number of nanometers on Amazon, for example, just for a few minutes, and you'll notice how soothing it is on the retina. My wife and I try to do it almost every night.
I remember back in the 1950s, and I was just a baby type kid. My father used to have like a red kind of infrared light that he used to rub on his arms and shoulders and stuff. What was he doing, Tom?
Well, that's the same principle, really, because, for example, we do sell a similar device that has infrared LEDs plus the red LED. It's an LED array. You find it on bioenergydevice.org. And the interesting thing is that the infrared portion will be very penetrating to sore muscles and joints. So I'm sure he was just relaxing those aches and pains that he felt from the day's work.
How did he know how to do that back in those days?
My mother actually bought, and it was gifted by my father, a similar lamp that had ultraviolet or infrared. And so when we were feeling sick, she would have us sit in front of it. And it's amazing how our parents actually had this intuitive idea of using infrared years ago.
They were way ahead of time, weren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. They definitely were. And even Dr. Glenn Gordon, who now likes we've vindicated his belief in the 8 cycle per second frequency for PEMF, pulse EMF. That seems to be another intuitive thing that he didn't even know it would be good for his heart, and now we're proving it. Journal articles are proving it.
You talk about the exposure to cold water for about 30 seconds before you take a hot shower. Tell me about that.
That's in actually Harvard Business Review, and it's interesting that what they found was that even 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or 90 seconds didn't matter. 30 seconds was just as good as even a couple minutes of cold water. And they basically say 30% fewer sick days were the result of a study with 3,000 volunteers in the Netherlands. And this was just published about 2 years ago.
And what does it do?
Well, that's what, see, I'm a follower of Wim Hof. I don't know if you know WIMHOF.com, WimHof.com.
No, I'm not.
Hof is amazing. He's called the Iceman. And if you Google Wim Hof, you'll see he's had world records on standing in tubs of ice, crushed ice for over an hour. He's also been to Antarctica in shorts, running around. He's been...
I'm not doing that, but why does he do it?
Well, what it's interesting is that now there's a course. I even paid to join this course to learn more about the technique. He basically does it to improve his immune system. And that's what he was claiming until the doctors tested him and found, yeah, he's actually right. We can infect him with germs and he doesn't get sick. So Wim Hof has been a guinea pig for some of the worst germs they could deliver to him. And as long as he does this cold treatment, and he does, sub-freezing type treatment. That's what I'm trying to say, near 0 degrees. And he's one of the extreme. But he's teaching other people to do it too. And that's the point, is especially for older people, it'll shock the immune system into reacting and providing peripheral vessel dilation, which is very important for, superficial blood circulation, including the brain. So he has you hyperventilating 30 times, inhaling quickly. It's a very fascinating course that he teaches.
Would you say, Tom, that your immune system is pretty high?
Well, sure. I meditate every day. I do energization exercises, and I have that attitude that he has, that you can actually change your immune system reaction by feeling strong, believing you're strong, and having a strong religious outlook.
I mean, we've passed worldwide 1 million COVID deaths, they say. I'm not so sure about these numbers, but they say we have.
Yeah.
And I would guess most of those people who passed on might have had... complicated immune systems and things like that. What do you think?
Oh, sure. Yeah, older people are definitely weakened immune systems because most older people don't exercise. One of my heroes is a fellow named Robert Marchand, and he's almost 120 years old now in France, and he's won bicycle races.
Well, he can't be. They say the oldest person is a Japanese lady at 117, so maybe he's close to that?
Yes, he's approximately 117 right now. Yep.
Wow.
And he's still going strong because he exercises and he does the HIIT routine. I don't know if you know about high-intensity interval training.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
yep.
His doctor told him, you can improve your performance if you start doing HIIT. And all it does is you go as fast as you can and whatever you're doing.
For short bursts.
Exactly. And then you take a break, 5 minutes, and then you try again, and, over and over again. So we do it for 20 minutes at least once a week, along with other exercises as well.
That's pretty good stuff, and it works out.
Yeah.
The little machine that you had sent me to practice on is a high voltage machine. It's not dangerous, but tell me what it's used for.
Actually, there's a lot of testimonials on our website, bioenergydevice.org, and it's basically not to make any claims medically.
Right, understand. You can't say cures anymore. Huh?
Exactly. But what it's interesting to describe is that we're providing the body with 40,000 volts instead of like the old violet ray, which is around 7,000 volts. And so when you get up into that range of high voltage, 40,000 or higher, then you're basically transferring it through a noble gas, and still it's very safe to provide that kind of electron transfer into the joints or muscles or where you feel aches and pains. And what's interesting is the infusion of electrons basically are antioxidants. Along with Dr. Eichmann, the two of us have published papers on the fact that electrons are antioxidants. And so if you have a high voltage source of them, you can basically remove pain quickly in various parts of the body and accelerate the healing process and reduce inflammation. Boosting the transmembrane potential.
What is the osteopad?
Well, years ago, I actually was privy to the Robert Becker. He was a neighbor of mine in Rochester, New York. Dr. Robert Becker wrote The Body Electric.
Yeah, that's him. Sure, he's been on our show before.
Yeah, well, he was until he passed away.
Yeah, exactly. With my show, Tom, getting him after the fact works sometimes too.
I believe you. Yeah. Well, actually, there was a doctor who was his follower and protege. I remember a lecture from him as well, and he basically would substitute for Dr. Becker. Anyways, Becker, Bassett, and Pilla were the three amigos that published lots of papers on the fact that they had discovered that you could actually, first of all, provide a voltage to a breakage, a bone fracture, and heal in half the time, twice the rapidity of healing. And then they discovered, well, let's put a magnetic coil around it and pulse it, and then see if that works, and it worked fine. They got tons of patents. The FDA and the patent office was giving them all kinds of patents. Years later, literally 20 years later, I called Dr. Pilla and said, how come we can't find a single device on the commercial market that reflects the inventions that you patented to heal people of osteoporosis?
Yeah, you would think that they'd be all over the place.
Exactly. 50% of Americans, for example, suffer from osteoporosis sometime in their life, especially if you don't do weight-bearing exercise, and free weights, heavy duty. And as you get older, you tend not to lift heavy weights, but you should. So anyways, this is an electrical version of that, and they discovered it. Pella said, I didn't get funding for that type of research. That was his excuse. So I was fit to be tied. I was so infuriated. I said, well, I'm going to invent it, copy their invention, and basically make it affordable for the public. So osteopad.org is our website for that product. And you can actually, we have people who have done bone density testing before, and then 6 months later, and in many cases, I wouldn't say all, but in many cases, the bone density is increased in elderly people. And
it's amazing.
You can passively use near the body.
Amazing work that you do. Tom, give out a couple of your websites, even though we have the link for you.
Sure. The main one is integrity-research.org, 800-295-7674. But the bioelectric products are available on a special website called bioenergydevice.org, and it's dedicated to all of those biotherapeutics.
All right, well, I'm going to talk about your belief in UFOs when we come back, Tom. Plus, we're going to take some phone calls in just a moment right here on Coast to Coast AM.
Feeling lost?